You have probably heard of wannabe gangsters and posers. But what about the real-life gangsters turned wannabe influencers and podcasters? They are becoming more and more common, and in this video, we will look at 5 of the most successful convicts who have made the transition. Coming out of prison or on parole, ex-cons aren't given too many options in life, turning many to pursue a life in the spotlight as a social media influencer or podcaster, often beginning their social media journey by retelling prison stories and appearing on fellow ex-cons and true crime channels and podcasts, hoping they can gather enough traction and fans to begin their own social media journey. Murderers, drug dealers, mafia bosses are all trying their hand in the modern media market. Let's take a look at some of the most successful to date. If you have heard of them, let me know in the comments. If you think they are popular because they are great social media personalities, or if the clout and status from their criminal career has undeservedly elevated them to the position they are in. Kicking off our list is UK resident and former ecstasy kingpin, Sean Atwood. Sean's journey into the world of social media actually began while in prison. He would keep a journal detailing what his time was really like behind bars in a US prison. A friend would sneak out the stories and anonymously post them on an online blog. These blogs led to Sean's first book deal coming to fruition after his release from prison. Atwood was definitely not your cold-hearted or violent gangster. He was more about the love and party scene that accompanied the rave era of the 90s. A former successful stockbroker and millionaire in his early 20s, he walked away from the trading floor for a more exciting path, but one that came with risk and would permanently alter the course of his life. Born October 28, 1968 in Widnes, Cheshire to a middle-class household, he had loving and supportive parents and showed promise at school. Teachers recognized his interest in the stock market and would help educate him on economics and the financial markets. By the age of 16, he had made his first trade with £50 borrowed from his grandmother. He had aunts living in Arizona who he would often visit and eventually decide to move there. Atwood studied business at Liverpool University and graduated in 1990. During his time at university, Atwood became infatuated with ecstasy and the rave scene. Atwood claims that the ecstasy would help with his anxiety. Being an awkward introvert, the drugs broke down the barriers and allowed him to connect with people from all walks of life. After graduating university, Atwood moved to Arizona. He began working in the stock market and earning a high income. He was taking ecstasy every weekend and enjoying the rave scene in Arizona, often hosting parties and supplying his guests with ecstasy. What started as selling small amounts turned into bulk purchases made in LA and then distributed in Arizona. His high income from his day job was able to fund his side hustle and entry into the drug game. His story was featured worldwide on National Geographic Channel as an episode of Locked Up Abroad called Raving Arizona. Random House published his life story as the English Sean Trilogy. Since his first book, Hard Time, was published in 2011, Atwood has authored books on his life and other topics, often telling the tales of other inmates he met in prison. As Atwood began to organize larger parties with his money, his popularity grew, as well as the demand for his product. After a party one night that was raided by the police, Sean assisted a member of the Mexican mafia evade police by hiding out in his apartment. This made Sean a friend who connected him with bigger suppliers and helped him develop his ecstasy empire in Arizona. He started bulk purchasing ecstasy in Los Angeles and distributing large amounts of it in Arizona. Atwood, being English and a high-income job in the financial sector, was the perfect cover for him to travel back and forth from Europe. He would travel back home to see family and also make more connections in Holland, where the rave scene was huge and he could acquire mass quantities of the drug to be smuggled into the States. Atwood was making friends around the world, but was also making some enemies. He was unknowingly creating an enemy of another person on our list, a savage killer and high-up figure and underboss in the Italian mafia. After surviving multiple murder attempts from his enemies, Atwood decided to walk away from drug dealing. He had made enough money and the risk was not worth it anymore. He had moved into his girlfriend's apartment and started trading stocks again. Atwood thought he had closed that chapter of his life and got away with it. Unfortunately for him, local police had been investigating the selling of ecstasy, and he was on their radar, although they had no hard evidence connecting him to the distribution in the area. In 2002, a witness testified that they received their drug from someone who had purchased it directly from Atwood. This was enough for Atwood to be arrested and convicted of multiple drug dealing charges. After a 2-year-long stay in Maricopa County Jail, Atwood was sentenced to 9.5 years. A cohort of others who were part of his organization were also sentenced, with Atwood receiving the highest. Atwood would serve a total of 5 years before being released and deported back to England, receiving a life ban from ever entering the United States. While in prison, Atwood wrote journals, which were smuggled out and posted on an online blog titled John's Jail Journal. The blog would garner international attention about the conditions of American state prison. Since being released in 2007, Atwood has become a published author, YouTuber, public speaker, and activist. He started his YouTube channel in 2007, where he speaks both of his own time in prison, but also interviews other former prisoners to bring awareness to the negative impacts of drugs and crime. He is an ongoing activist for prisoners' rights and has given talks around Europe and appeared on major TV and radio networks. Sean Atwood's social media following is large, with just under 1 million subscribers on YouTube and well over 1 million if you include all social media platforms. He continues to grow his online brand and presence. He has transitioned to normal life and taken advantage of the digital age as well as anyone. Do you think a former drug kingpin should be able to profit from telling stories of their illegal activities? Let me know in the comments. Next on our list is Sacramento's biggest and best ex-con influencer, a former drug dealer and bank robber, Big Herc, real name Marcus Timmons. Marcus Timmons grew up in Sacramento, California. Like many inner-city youth, his early life was filled with tough choices, limited resources, and the constant pull of the streets. From a young age, Herc showed potential. He was intelligent and hardworking. Whether it was working odd jobs or finding ways to make money, he had that entrepreneurial fire. But unfortunately, that drive took a dark turn. Herc lacked the level-headed, mature influences in his life that could help him avoid the traps of the streets. He should have been part of business meetings, college applications, and scholarship programs. Instead, he was associating with gang culture, drug dealing, and hustling on the streets. Herc soon found himself headed toward the penitentiary. In the early 2000s, Big Herc made a life-altering decision. Involved in a bank robbery, he was caught, convicted, and sentenced to over 9 years in federal prison. This was no petty crime. It was a serious offense that brought serious time behind bars in a federal facility. Most people who enter that system come out worse. Herc, however, used prison as a place of reflection and transformation. Behind those concrete walls, Big Herc began to change. He started reading, learning, reflecting. He began bodybuilding, using the discipline required for his body as a way to discipline his mind. The man who once robbed a bank started planning for a future far removed from crime. Either on the yard or in the day rooms, he knew he was different to most others in prison. He wasn't going to come out the same way he went in, and he had no intention of returning. After serving nearly a decade in prison, Herc was released. Most former inmates struggle to get jobs. Many returned to crime. But Big Herc had a different plan. He wasn't just going to survive, he was going to inspire. He launched a YouTube channel called Fresh Out, Life After the Penitentiary, and what started as a small project with a camera and a couch quickly exploded. Herc and his co-creator would sit down with ex-convicts, gang members, and people who lived the street life, letting them share their unfiltered stories. But unlike other true crime content, Fresh Out wasn't about glorifying violence. It was about redemption, about transformation, about what comes next. The channel struck a chord. In a sea of entertainment, Big Herc was giving people real talk about prison politics, inmate survival, post-prison re-entry, and mental health. Big Herc didn't stop with Fresh Out. He diversified. Over the years, he's built a brand that includes interviews with former gang members, mobsters, drug dealers, and law enforcement, giving all sides of the criminal world. Motivational videos about staying out of trouble and chasing legitimate success. Q&A sessions on everything from surviving solitary confinement to prison tattoos to avoiding bad decisions. And fans from all over the world can't get enough. His channel has racked up millions of views, and Big Herc has become a go-to voice for those curious about prison life, or those trying to stay out of it. He's been featured on other podcasts, crime documentaries, and even hosted motivational workshops. But more than anything, Big Herc became a symbol of what's possible after prison. A man who didn't let a bad decision define the rest of his life. Unlike many influencers, Big Herc doesn't flash gold chains or flaunt Lamborghinis. His success is measured by the impact he has on others, the positive outcomes that come from his mentorship, and the overall value his new life brings to society. Every time someone leaves a comment saying, "Your videos helped me turn my life around," or "You changed my life," Big Herc wins. Every time a kid watches his content and reconsiders picking up a gun or joining a gang, he's succeeded. And he's not just talking the talk, he's walking it. Today, Big Herc owns multiple businesses, trains in bodybuilding, sells merchandise, and continues to upload consistent, authentic content. Whether he's discussing prison survival tips or dropping wisdom on manhood, Herc's real and honest content inspires thousands every day. Big Herc's story is about more than crime and punishment. It's about accountability, growth, and second chances. Big Herc can teach many lessons to his fans, but some of the most important are: your past doesn't define your future. Even if you've made terrible mistakes, you can rebuild. Discipline is everything. Whether it's lifting weights or running a business, staying focused is key. And authenticity is key. People respect honesty, and Herc has built an entire platform just by being himself. From a federal inmate to a YouTube phenomenon, Big Herc's life proves that redemption is possible, and that sharing your truth can inspire millions. If you have heard of anyone from our list, it would be this man. An infamous mafia killer and underboss turned informant of the Gambino crime family. One of the most feared and powerful mafia figures in American history. A man who admitted to 19 murders and then flipped on the most notorious mob boss of all, John Gotti. Today, that same man is a YouTuber, telling stories to millions of viewers from the very life he once lived in blood and silence. Our next wannabe gangster turned YouTuber is none other than Sammy the Bull Gravano. Sammy Gravano was born on March 12, 1945, in Brooklyn, New York. Raised in an Italian-American family, young Sammy struggled in school. He was dyslexic, often misunderstood, and found more connection on the streets than in the classroom. Nicknamed the Bull at just 10 years old for fighting off 3 older boys who tried to steal his bike, Sammy was never afraid of violence. He embraced it, and in the world he was growing up in, that reputation mattered. By the 1960s, Sammy had entered the criminal underworld, first with the Rampers, a local street gang, and soon after he was recruited by the Colombo crime family, one of the infamous 5 families of New York. Eventually, Sammy transferred to the Gambino family, where he quickly rose through the ranks. He wasn't just muscle, he was smart, calculating, and loyal. That loyalty earned him the trust of John Gotti, who would eventually become boss of the Gambino family. In 1986, after Gotti orchestrated the murder of boss Paul Castellano, Gravano became underboss, the second highest position in the most powerful mafia family in America. At their peak, the Gambinos were pulling in hundreds of millions of dollars a year through extortion, racketeering, gambling, construction scams, and more. Sammy wasn't just a mobster, he was a key architect of organized crime in New York, both respected and feared by those in the life and those attracted to it. In 1991, everything changed. Sammy made a decision he had killed people for previously. Facing life in prison, Gravano made a stunning decision to save himself. He did the unthinkable. A loyal underboss friend he was no more. Sammy flipped. He turned state's witness against his boss, John Gotti, and in doing so, became the highest-ranking member of the American Mafia ever to testify for the government. His testimony was devastating. Gravano not only confessed to 19 murders, but detailed the inner workings of the Gambino family. In 1992, thanks in large part to Sammy's cooperation, Gotti was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Gravano's plea deal gave him a reduced sentence, just 5 years, most of which he had already served. His decision sent shockwaves through the mob world. The once loyal underboss had become the ultimate rat, depending on who you asked. After his release, Gravano entered the witness protection program, but didn't stay in hiding for long. He moved to Arizona and began living under his real name. By the late 90s, he even gave TV interviews, breaking the unwritten code of silence. But the past has a way of catching up. In 2000, Gravano was arrested again, this time for running an ecstasy drug ring with his son Gerard. Federal authorities alleged Sammy had returned to the criminal life and was now trafficking pills with a crew of young mobsters. During his reign as an ecstasy dealer, his path would indirectly cross another person on our list, Sean Atwood, and Sammy the Bull's crew would be fighting for territory in the state of Arizona. Sean's backing of the Mexican Mafia and Sammy's private new crew could have led to a bloody battle for the crown of ecstasy kingpin had things gone slightly differently. Sean had removed himself from the game as tensions were rising not long before both men were arrested. Sammy was convicted and sentenced to 19 years in prison. The former mob boss was now a two-time felon. But Sammy wasn't finished. Released in 2017 after serving 17 years, Gravano was now in his 70s, but more relevant than ever. In 2020, he launched a YouTube channel called Our Thing by Sammy the Bull, where he tells first-hand stories about the mafia, prison, and life on the streets. And just like that, Sammy the Bull had rebranded himself for the digital age. His storytelling is raw, unfiltered, and chilling. From describing how he carried out mob hits to breaking down mafia structure, betrayal, and brotherhood, Sammy gives audiences a front-row seat to a world few will ever know. Today, the channel has hundreds of thousands of subscribers, millions of views, and a loyal audience captivated by Gravano's authenticity and experience. He's also launched a podcast, merchandise, and has done appearances on Netflix, Vlad TV, and various documentaries. From underboss to under the spotlight, Sammy once again found himself at the center of attention, but this time by choice. Sammy the Bull's online presence hasn't been without criticism. Some say he's profiting from murder, that he shouldn't have a platform after all the blood on his hands. Others argue he's finally being honest, pulling back the curtain on the violent reality of the mob life, and that people can learn from his mistakes. Gravano himself has addressed the controversy directly. In his videos, he often reflects on regret, loyalty, and the price of power. He doesn't glamorize the life, he dissects it, a cold-hearted approach much like his criminal career. Sammy the Bull is many things: cold-hearted, killer, mafia icon, criminal, rat, and now wannabe YouTuber. Is YouTuber the final chapter of Sammy's professional life? Almost 80 years old, is he too old to return back to the criminal life? Will his past catch up with him? Whatever happens, there will be millions of interested fans and haters watching on. If you're enjoying this video, please like and subscribe. If you have recognized this next YouTuber, you would know his style. Aggressive, in-your-face motivation from insecure tough guy, Wes Watson. Comparatively, Wes does far less interviews than the others on this list. He talks more to the camera and tells you how it is. No care in the world if he offends his viewers. He seems to rather enjoy it. In his opinion, if you can't take it, you're a loser and will always be. Watson's aggressive attitude has won him thousands of fans, and he has used his popularity to start businesses and make millions of dollars. After 10 years spent behind bars, he is definitely making the most of the opportunities the digital age offers. Wes Watson was born and raised in Oceanside, California. On the surface, he had a decent life. He didn't come from a life of money or privilege, but have a normal working-class family. Drawn to violence and the street life, by his teens, Wes had fully embraced the streets, drugs, gang life, fights, and money. He was involved with white prison gangs and lived by a strict code of street conduct, loyalty, respect, and violent retaliation. As a young man, Wes was chasing respect. He wanted to be feared, respected, untouchable. He pursued this aggressively, actively getting into fights and being involved in drug dealing. Watson's lifestyle eventually caught up with him. At the age of 25, Wes Watson was sentenced to 10 years in the California Department of Corrections for violent crimes tied to gang activity and drug trafficking. California's state prison system has a reputation for being one of the toughest in America. Stabbings, rape, and murder occurred regularly behind the walls of the state prisons. You needed to be tough, ferocious, align with the right people just to survive. Watson was locked up with lifers, killers, and hardened gang members. He quickly learned that in prison, your reputation is everything, and weakness is a death sentence. He didn't just survive, he adapted, evolved, and dominated. After spending time in prison, Watson had a change of mindset. He was adamant he was not going to waste his time behind bars. Instead, he committed to transforming himself mentally and physically. Spending his time reading and working out, he transformed himself into a disciplined leader on the yard. In 2017, Wes Watson was released from prison after serving 10 straight years. He had no money, no job, and no resume, and no traditional prospects on the horizon. But he had vision, he had discipline, and he had a story. Within weeks of getting out, Wes filmed his first YouTube video, No fancy production, no script, just him, shirtless, intense, and unapologetically honest. He called his channel GP, General Population, and it blew up almost overnight. People couldn't get enough. They weren't just entertained, they were shocked, inspired, and hooked. Watson's brutal honesty, explosive energy, and no BS delivery was unlike anything else in the self-help space. He didn't pull any punches. It was authentic. He spoke straight from the yard about accountability, manhood, habits, regret, and redemption. Wes Watson turned his pain into a platform, and his platform into a seven-figure business. He launched Watson Fit, a coaching company that helps men and women reclaim their lives through discipline, fitness, and personal development. Clients pay thousands to work with him, and many claim life-changing results. Wes offers mindset coaching, fitness transformations, and straight talk that cuts through the noise of modern victim culture. Wes has created a YouTube channel with hundreds of thousands of subscribers, a massive Instagram following, a best-selling book called Non-Negotiable, an online mentorship empire pulling in millions per year, and he's done it through turning his pain and anger into a disciplined, raw, authentic, motivational platform that has resonated with millions. In a world full of excuses, he preaches accountability. When people are used to the same soft approach that enables failure, Watson's approach cuts straight through the excuses and pushes people to change. His message is simple. You are exactly where you deserve to be, and it's your job to change it. Watson is proof that redemption is attainable, that prison doesn't have to end your life, it can begin your rebirth. And he's showing a generation of young men that strength isn't about violence or money. It's about character, consistency, and control. Whether you love his intensity or hate his delivery, there's no denying one thing. Wes Watson lives what he preaches. From prison yard politics to millionaire coach, from chaos to clarity, Wes Watson wasted 10 years of his life behind bars, and when he was finally released, he wasn't willing to waste another second. His story is raw, it's real, and it's still being written. How far Wes can take his empire remains to be seen. If you have consumed Watson's content, let me know what you think of it in the comments. Our final criminal turned wannabe YouTuber is the most successful criminal on the list, and now is the most successful YouTuber as well. In a former life, he was a captain in the Colombo crime family. Hundreds of people serving under him, he made millions of dollars from racketeering, extortion, gas tax scams, and gambling. If you can name it, he probably had a hand in it. Michael Francesi, the Mafia Prince. Michael Francesi was born on May 27, 1951, in Brooklyn, New York. His father was Sonny Francesi, the notorious underboss of the Colombo crime family, a feared and respected man with deep ties to the underworld. Initially, Michael had different plans. He enrolled in college, studying pre-med at Hofstra University. But when his father was sentenced to 50 years in prison in the early 70s, Michael made a life-altering decision. He quit school and entered the family business of organized crime. The legacy of the family in the underworld was more important to Michael than breaking away and forging his own path. Michael was officially made into the Colombo family in 1975, and from that moment on, he rose fast through the ranks. While most mobsters earned through extortion and loan sharking, Michael brought a businessman's mind to the mafia. His biggest success? A massive gasoline tax scam in the 1980s that involved selling Russian gas in New York and avoiding federal taxes. At its height, Michael was allegedly bringing in up to $8 million a week. He owned restaurants, nightclubs, auto dealerships. He mingled with celebrities, athletes, and politicians. At one point, Fortune magazine named him one of the 50 most wealthy and powerful mafia bosses in America. He was living a high life of luxury. He had wealth and power with the world seemingly at his feet. In the mid-1980s, federal authorities were closing in on Michael. He was eventually indicted on multiple counts of racketeering, extortion, and tax evasion. In 1986, he pled guilty and was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. Commonly with the people on our list, Michael used his time in prison for reflection. After thorough contemplation, he found faith and was guided away from the life of organized crime. Few people have walked away from the mafia life and lived to tell the tale. When Michael left prison in 1995, he was able to walk away without moving into witness protection. He was able to do it. What helped was a combination of knowing people in the right positions, and most of his potential objectors were either dead or spending life behind bars. He became a motivational speaker, traveling across the country speaking to churches, corporations, students, and inmates. His story wasn't about glorifying crime, it was about transformation. He wrote multiple best-selling books, including Quitting the Mob, Blood Covenant, and Mafia Democracy. In 2020, like many ex-convicts, Michael Franzese launched a YouTube channel. It started small, a few mafia stories, interviews, behind-the-scenes truths about La Cosa Nostra. But his calm demeanor, sharp storytelling, and real-life credibility set him apart from other true crime creators. He had the gravitas to speak about mobster life from different angles, as well as having deeper intel on what was really happening on the streets of New York during his era. His channel gained traction, and today, his channel has over 1 million subscribers and hundreds of millions of views. He's interviewed former mobsters, FBI agents, celebrities, and even broken down popular mafia movies like The Godfather and Goodfellas, explaining what's real and what's Hollywood. Today, Michael Franzese is a walking contradiction. He was raised in the mob, but now teaches people to live with honor. He used to steal millions, but now helps people find purpose. He's been married for over 30 years, is a father, grandfather, and lives a life centered on faith, family, and freedom. Michael Franzese has lived an extraordinary life, being born into a life of organized crime royalty and following in the footsteps of his father. He became a rich and powerful figure of the New York underworld, rubbing shoulders with celebrities, politicians, and business leaders. His arrest changed his life, setting him on a new path, one to help and inspire others, one of faith and virtue. He has experienced the highs and lows of life and is still looking to achieve more. His YouTube channel continues to grow, and he continues to help and entertain others. He may not reach the heights in the legitimate world that he did in the underworld, but if he maintains the path he is on, who knows how big of a legacy he will leave behind. If you have enjoyed watching this video, please like and subscribe for more. Let us know of any notable wannabe YouTubers that have not made this list.